Am I the a-hole for refusing to thank my SIL for being a parent? My 22F brother, 35M, surprised me 6 months ago by planning a trip to Scotland for my birthday. He knew I've never traveled before and that visiting the Scottish Highlands had been my absolute dream country since I was a little girl. Due to tight finances, it was just the two of us, which I was completely okay with since at the time him and I were extremely close. For context, my brother is married and has 2 kids under 6. His wife, 34F, had initially said she was happy for me and didn't mind holding down the fort for a week while we were on the trip. Her and I have never been close and, quite frankly, just tolerate each other for the sake of keeping the peace. She's never been a fan of how close my siblings are with each other. It all comes down to growing up in different family dynamics, in my opinion. In our family, we have always been fiercely supportive of one another, whereas she comes from a much more distant background and often views our sibling bond with a lot of suspicion and jealousy. When my brother first told me about the surprise trip, I remember sitting at their kitchen table, entirely overwhelmed by his generosity. I made sure to thank both him and my sister-in-law right then and there. I looked at her directly and asked if she was truly comfortable with him taking a week off for my birthday gift, and she gave me a warm smile, waved her hand dismissively, and assured me that everything was fine and that I should just focus on having fun. I felt so relieved and grateful. I asked my brother multiple times if he was sure it was okay for us to go, and he assured me again and again that we were completely set. Anyway, the trip was amazing, and I loved every single second of it. We spent a week driving through breathtaking green valleys, exploring ancient castle ruins, and walking through fog-covered streets. It was an unforgettable experience. I was on such a high when we came back that I thanked my brother so many times for doing this for me, until he finally told me to shut up with a chuckle. I thought everything was good, that everyone was happy, and we resumed our lives normally. Imagine my surprise when I get a text 3 days after coming back from my SIL telling me off and calling me rude and ungrateful cause I didn't send her a text thanking her for babysitting on her own and having to do everything around her house for a whole week while I had fun with her husband. Yup, that's exactly how she worded it. I was flabbergasted. I sat there staring at my phone in absolute shock, reading those harsh words over and over again. My stomach dropped into a heavy knot. This is the same woman who smiled to my face and told me to have fun on my trip, and now she's berating me for not thanking her for doing me a favor by taking care of her own children for a week. Am I crazy? Or is that totally irrational and just weird? I tried to keep my tone level, but I told her I'm not sure taking care of your own children is babysitting or doing someone else a favor. She immediately blew up at me, sending rapid-fire messages calling me a terrible, ungrateful brat and saying that I never show appreciation for anything. I was so confused and rattled by all of this that I called my brother to explain what was happening, expecting him to calm her down and clarify things. But to my complete dismay, my brother doubled down. He told me the trip wouldn't have been possible had she not volunteered to take care of their kids so we could have fun, and that I should be thanking her for doing it for me. I was, and still am, utterly confused on why I need to thank a mother for taking care of her own kids. The whole situation began to spiral quickly. I felt completely cornered and isolated. To keep the peace and stop the endless arguments, I sucked up my pride and sent her a text saying thanks for doing it. But she decided I wasn't being sincere enough. She took my hesitant apology as an insult and convinced my brother to go low contact with me. My other siblings and my mom were deeply confused by all of this sudden drama when they found out, but they keep telling me to just bite my tongue and not stir the pot any further for the sake of family harmony. But I'm just so hurt and deeply confused. My relationship with my brother has been terribly strained ever since, and the cold distance from someone I used to rely on so much is taking a heavy toll on me. I just need outside opinions cause I'm genuinely confused on whether or not I'm the asshole in this whole mess. Edit. I can't reply to everyone, so let me clear up a few things I feel I should have included. They do not share finances. She has never spent any money on anything related to me. Also, last year she took a trip with her siblings abroad as well, and no, I don't know if her siblings thanked my brother for watching his kids. Finances were tight, as in my brother was paying out of his own pocket and wouldn't have been able to take anyone else with us. Plus, this trip was a birthday gift, not a family trip, so no one expected to join. I did thank them both when I was first told about the trip, and I asked my brother if he was sure it was okay for us to go, and he assured me we were set, and I only needed to have fun. I later learned that she didn't contribute anything to the trip and said she wouldn't have wanted to take a trip with me anyway. Hope this clears some things up. Update. Thank you to everyone for the insight on my previous post. I honestly didn't expect it to get so much attention, and reading through hundreds of comments gave me a lot to think about. Looking back, I can admit I didn't handle every part of the situation perfectly. A lot has happened since then, so this update is a long one. Before I get into everything, I want to clear up a few points because they kept coming up. When I said finances were tight, I meant my brother's personal spending money, not that they were struggling financially. My brother and SIL keep separate finances except for household expenses and their children. My brother paid for the trip himself, so bringing more people simply wasn't realistic. They still take a family vacation every year and are financially comfortable. I also did thank both of them when the trip was first planned. My SIL later made it clear she hadn't contributed financially and even joked that she wouldn't have wanted to travel with me anyway. Last year, she went on a trip with her own siblings while my brother stayed home with the kids, so I honestly thought this arrangement worked both ways. Another thing people found confusing was my family dynamic. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings, and we're extremely close. We're from an Asian country, where siblings often stay very involved in each other's lives, even as adults. My SIL has always found that unusual, and has said more than once that our family is too attached. A lot of people also assumed I'd never helped them before. That's simply not true. After both of their children were born, I babysat 5 days a week for months, once my SIL returned to work. My brother always thanked me afterward, but my SIL never did. That never bothered me because I was helping family, not expecting praise. Finally, yes, I eventually thanked her after our argument because I wanted to end the conflict. By then it was too late. She insisted I wasn't sincere, and the argument continued anyway. Now for the update. After reading everyone's opinions, I sat down with my mom because I wanted another perspective. She agreed that I probably should have simply thanked my SIL instead of arguing over the word babysitting. At the same time, she admitted she couldn't understand why my SIL's messages were so aggressive from the very beginning. Looking back, I think that's what put me on the defensive more than anything else. While talking with my family, I learned several things I hadn't known. Apparently, my brother only covered the flights and accommodation. My eldest brother quietly gave him spending money for food and activities, and my other siblings chipped in as well because they all wanted this birthday gift to happen. None of them wanted credit because my brother wanted it to feel like his present to me as a thank you for helping with his children over the years. I also found out my brother had offered to bring my SIL along and leave the kids with my mom for the week. She turned him down because she didn't think the trip would be enjoyable for either of us, given that we've never been particularly close. Even more surprising, my brother had arranged for people to check on her every single day while we were away. My mom called daily, my siblings checked in, and my brother even asked my SIL sisters to help if she needed anything. What really confused me was learning she'd actually taken the entire week off work. 4 of the 7 days, she dropped the kids off with my mom, and on the remaining days, she spent time with her own sisters. She wasn't alone all week, and she definitely wasn't abandoned with no support. Once my siblings saw the screenshots of her messages, their attitude completely changed. Until then, they'd assumed this had been a simple misunderstanding. Instead, they saw pages of insults that none of them knew she'd sent. My sister decided to call my brother herself. That's when everything unraveled. It turned out my SIL had told him a completely different version of events. According to her, no one from our family had checked on her all week, the children had been miserable the entire time, and she'd simply asked me politely for a thank you before I exploded at her. She even claimed I'd called her entitled and said she deserved nothing because she hadn't paid for the trip. My brother admitted he wasn't entirely convinced because it didn't sound like me, but he chose to trust his wife. He believed supporting her was the right thing to do and never asked anyone else what had actually happened. My sister sent him the screenshots along with proof that our mom and several siblings had checked in throughout the week. After seeing everything, he realized he'd only heard one side of the story. He confronted my SIL that same night. It didn't go well. From what my brother later told me, she eventually admitted the issue had never really been about the thank you. She confessed she'd been uncomfortable for years with how close my siblings and I are. In her family, adult siblings rarely spend time together, so our relationship felt unhealthy to her. She wanted my brother to create more distance between himself and us, and thought this situation would finally push that to happen. Instead, it created problems everywhere. My brother apologized to me over the phone. He admitted he'd ignored his own instincts because things were already tense at home, and he thought backing his wife would calm everything down. Instead, he ended up damaging his relationship with me and upsetting the rest of our siblings. He also told me that he and my SIL had agreed on marriage counseling and she'd be starting individual therapy as well. For now, she decided to go no contact with me and the rest of my siblings while they worked through everything. He made it clear that this only applied to her. He had no intention of cutting contact with me again and apologized for doing it without even speaking to me first. I asked whether I should reach out and apologize properly for my comment or thank her again now that emotions had settled.
He told me not to.
According to him, gratitude was never the real issue. There were much deeper problems in their marriage that had finally come to the surface, and contacting her right now would only complicate things further. I honestly don't think my relationship with my SIL will ever return to what it was. We were never close, but we were always polite and respectful because she's my brother's wife. I genuinely never expected something like this to happen. I still feel guilty that a birthday trip somehow became the catalyst for all of this, but my siblings keep reminding me that none of us caused whatever had been building beneath the surface. Mom still believes a simple thank you at the beginning might have prevented everything from escalating. My siblings disagree. They think this would have surfaced eventually because the problem clearly went far beyond one message. One thing I do want to acknowledge is that many of you were right. Even though she's their mother, taking care of 2 young children by herself for a week is exhausting, and a sincere thank you would have been the polite thing to do. At 22, I don't have children, so I was looking at it purely through the lens of parents don't babysit their own kids. That phrase gets thrown around online all the time, and I assumed it applied equally here. I understand now that appreciating someone's effort isn't the same thing as saying they aren't responsible for their own children. For what it's worth, I actually brought her back a souvenir from Scotland before any of this happened. I bought magnets for her collection and little gifts for everyone else because I got carried away shopping. Scotland was my first trip abroad, and I was genuinely excited to bring something home for my family. Thank you again to everyone who commented, whether you thought I was right or wrong. Reading different perspectives helped me understand parts of this situation I hadn't considered. Some replies were definitely harsher than they needed to be, but that's the internet. And finally, for everyone asking why this story also appeared on a podcast subreddit, that was entirely my friend's idea. She's a huge fan of the podcast and convinced me to post it there because she thought it'd be funny if they read a story about someone she actually knows. I wasn't looking for extra validation. I just went along with it because she was excited and honestly, I couldn't say no to her. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.